Hello folks, United Virtual FRA review here for UAL9785. Let's get straight into it. So we're going to be at Washington Dulles International today, Kilo India Alpha Delta. Runway 19 left we're going to be using today. It's going to be basically an overextended pattern flight, working with VOR radial navigation. On the left hand side, I've got the United Virtual fuel plan, and there are two numbers here, two figures I'm concerned with. The planned fuel on board, which we have 22,289 pounds, gives us roughly 2 hours worth of fuel. And our zero fuel weight, which is 127,060 pounds. Over in Top Cat, I have the actual zero fuel weight as close as I could match it to that 127,000 pounds. So we'll be 127.1 today on the zero fuel weight. And to accommodate that zero fuel weight, we're going to have 111 made-up passengers today. I'm going to think of them as the United Personnel FAA examiners. And we'll be loading them in the coach today. For the cargo, we're going to simulate 16,400 pounds of coffee and donuts for the examiners and coach, and we're going to distribute that by 7,854 pounds in the forward cargo compartment and 8,546 pounds in the aft compartment. We are using a 737 today, 800 model. November 17244. Over on the right hand screen, this is the Dulles Airport. We're going to park ourselves on the Charlie Gate 1 stand. It's convenient for 19 left. Exit the apron out Delta, left on Kilo, right on Juliet 1. We'll hitch on to 19 left. We're going to be using the ILS runway 19 left approach today. When we come in off our final VOR track, we turn right heading 140. We're going to plan for the Izumi intersection here. It's about 16.7 miles from the field. Looking at the descent profile, Izumi, we're going to be at 3,000 feet to capture localizer. We'll head on down to Dome C, the ISGC 6.3 miles on a DME at 1,700 feet to capture a glide slope down 3 degrees standard descent to the field. Straight in landing, runway 19 left, ILS minimums today. We'll set decision height to 502 feet. Of course, with the weather briefing being clear skies and maximum visibility, standard pressure, it's not going to be a problem seeing the runway at that altitude. So with that said, let's go ahead and hop in the sim. Here's our jet. Let's go ahead and hop on board. I am using track IR today. I'll try to keep the head movements as smooth and minimum as I can. If you see my head moving down, that's just because I'm using my checklist on my mobile device today. So let's get started. I'm going to pin up this fuel plan window. And just going to go into the FMC here. We'll get the aircraft configured for fuel and payload. So for the fuel, 22,289 pounds. And it's going to distribute that as follows. We can see here in Top Cat, the left center and mains, pretty spot on. Payload, we'll go ahead and seat our flight examiners today and coach 111. And we'll go ahead and load in our 16,400 pounds of coffee and donuts. Gotta have coffee and donuts. So 7,854 pounds for the forward compartment and 8,546 pounds in the aft. This gives us a fuel weight of 127,100 pounds. CG coming in about 21%. Aircraft is loaded with fuel, and we got our examiners on board. I'm going to go ahead and enter full screen in. We'll hop back out when we put in the takeoff performance from Top Cat later on. I'm resetting my checklist here. We're going to start with the pre-flight and aft overhead checks. It's pretty standard routine stuff. Parking brake set. Battery master on. Going to verify we have a minimum of 22 direct current volts, which we do. Going to monitor the standby power. Close the standby power switch, make sure it's guarded. Light extinguishes, and we have 117 alternate current volts. And I'm going to do the same for the bus transfer. Lock, close, guard. And we are set up there. To note, ground power is available. And in the AC voltmeter, we have 115 available volts. It is safe. We'll go ahead and connect over to ground power. Electric hydraulic pumps, we're verifying they're off. Every light here should be on with low pressure. Standby power 1 and 2. Guard should be closed. Bus transfer switch guarded. Of course, standby power is guarded as well. Landing gear lever is down in 3 green. I'm going to perform the engine APU fire warning system test. It's going to clear the recall panel. Fault knob. Got the fault light, APU, DET, and knobs light, and looking for the overheat detention recall panel. Engine 1 and 2 overheat wheel well light is being displayed. Again, overheat detention on the recall panel. And going to perform a cargo fire test. We're going to go ahead and turn on the position lights to steady, strobes off. Let ground crew know the aircraft is powered up. Engine bleed switches 1 and 2 are off. APU bleed switch off. So engine bleeds off, APU off, bleed switch. We're going to bypass the APU startup procedures. Since we're connected to ground power, we'll wait till the aircraft's further configured so we don't waste fuel on the ground. With that said, let's hop to the back panel. Check the LE devices. Make sure the lights illuminate. I'm going to run a test on the IRS display panel, making sure that these lights are illuminated as they need to be. I'm going to put this into PPOS mode, and we're going to line the left and right inertial reference systems into nav and verify that they go into the align mode, which they do. It should take about 8 minutes to align. I'm going to check crew oxygen, about 1,600 pounds in the back, which is normal. Verify the passenger oxygen switch is closed, guard it in normal position. Flight recorder, I turn that on, just make sure that light extinguishes, and when I close the guard, light comes back on. Mach 1 and 2 airspeed warning. And I'll wait to perform the stall warning test 1 and 2. We'll wait for the inertial reference systems to align further. So we'll come back to that. Equipment cooling supply and exhaust switches should be in the normal position. Recirculation fans left and right auto. Air conditioning panel Set for unconditioned bleed. Isolation valve open, APU switch off, left and right packs in the auto position. Emergency exit lights will go in arm. No smoking sign. I don't see one on this aircraft, so we'll just fasten the seat belts and we'll leave that remain on for the duration of the flight. It's just a review flight. Flaps lever, we're going to make sure they're in the up position and showing up on the indicators. That completes the pre-flight and aft overhead checks. Before we move on, I'm just going to now verify the stall warning 1 and 2. Still waiting on that number 2 test. We'll check it. Overhead preparation checklist. Let's see here, standby hydraulics, so electric's off. Engines are currently off. We have low pressure lights illuminated. Flight controls, A and B should be guarded. Alternate flap switch is guarded in the off position. Spoiler A and B guarded. Yaw dampers on. Make sure light extinguishes. VHF nav normal, IRS normal, FMC normal, and display source to auto and control panels at normal. Going to verify crossfeed valve, crossfeed, bright and dim on the valve open. Turn it off, should be bright and go fully off. I'm going to turn off the center fuel pumps. Going to run a fuel pump test. I'm going to turn on the aft and forwards 1 and 2. Making sure the lights extinguish. I'm going to turn on the forwards. Turn them off and check the aft. And check the center fuel pumps. Lights should go on and off. And we'll return them to the off position. I'm going to check the stall warning number 2 test. Okay, those are working. Moving on here, I'm just checking off the items I've performed on the checklist. Next, on the DC voltmeter, we're going to check the DC amps for TR1, TR2, and TR3. 48, 22, 13. Cab utility, get that on. The IFE pass seat. Equipment cooling supply is in normal position. Seat belts will remain on. Emergency exit lights are armed. Wipers left and right will stay in the park position for the whole duration of this flight. Window heat, just going to check the overheat, make sure all 4 lights light up, and the power test should have 4 greens. Going to turn on the left and right side and forward window heat. Verify the static probe heat is off for left and right. Wing anti-ice is off, and so is the engine anti-ice, and they're going to remain off for the duration of this flight. Electric hydraulic pumps are off. Engine hydraulic pumps can go on. Cockpit voice recorder, test and hold. Wait for the green light. There we go. Ignition selector switches verifying they're in the off position, and we'll set the ignition to the right selector switch. Air conditioning panel, just going to check the air temp and cabin temperatures. They're good temp. Make sure trim air is on. I'll set the continuous cab to auto, forward cab to auto, and the aft cab to auto. Verifying the left and right circulation fans are in the auto position. We'll run an overheat wing body test. We've got the lights illuminated. Packs left and right auto. Isolation valve is open. Engine bleed switches 1 and 2. We'll go ahead and turn them on. APU is off, so we'll leave it at the APU bleed switch in the off position. Pressurization panel is, we're set to 6,000 feet for cruising altitude. MSL here at Dulles is 320 MSL. I have 300 set in the landing window, and making sure that the pressurization is in the auto configuration. Exterior lights, we'll go ahead and throw lower lights on. And we'll throw on the wing lights and wheel well lights as well. That completes the overhead preparation check. We'll move to the forward panel and pedestal checklist. We'll program the FMC. Probably still waiting on the IRS systems to fully align. We'll just take a look in the back. Looks like about 1 minute, which is fine. We're going to the FMC mode. Just going to go directly to the root page, wait for them inertial reference systems to align. We're at Washington, Dulles, Kilo India Alpha Delta. Going to be a pattern flight. So just going to put that in for the destination as well. Flight number today, I'm going to use my UAL9785 call sign. And we did get that in our IRS position box, which is great. We'll get set up too for 19 left. We'll just get that prep and throw that in the runway box. The left is flashing, still waiting in on the right. Should be coming in here real soon. We'll go to the position page. Just checking that GPS left and right do match latitude and longitudes. And now both IRSs are aligned. I'm going to take GPS left. We're going to throw that in the IRS box. We got our basic routing in and into departures. I'm just going to verify 19 left is selected. It should be. There we go. And the arrivals we'll set up for ILS runway 19 left. Go ahead and put that in. Glide slope on. We're not using transition daddy. We'll use Izumi. So that's fine. Just going to verify in the legs page that Izumi is 3000, Domes E1700. We'll fix that route discontinuity later on. So that's fine. I'm going to go into the fix panel. I'm just going to set up some fixes for my own situational awareness. And throw runway 19 left. A 4-mile ring. That's going to give us our short approach fix at Dome C, which at that point we should be fully configured for landing, flaps down, B target speed. I'm going to put a 10-mile ring in as well. Flaps 15, gear down, slowing her down. And then we'll put in a 25-mile ring. Will just help aid us today on our radials from the field. I'm going to throw in the RML VOR, Alpha Mike Lima fix. And we're going to be using the verify here, 235 radial. .340 radial. 175 inbound. And I'm also going to put the reciprocal to that. 355 outbound. And we can see here on the page we have our radials set, 235, 240, 355, 175. Also take note, if we need to go missed approach, holding procedures in the FMC. Basically we'll climb 2,000 feet, left-hand turn into climb, 010 over to 040, hold it Asper. We'll vector ourselves back in at 2,000 feet, Izumi going for the second approach, second attempt. That takes care of the routing for today in the FMC. We'll go ahead and get started with the performance INET page. Verifying 0 fuel weight, 127,100 pounds. With a gross weight of 149,600. Reserves, I'm just going to put 1,000 pounds in here. We're going to have plenty of reserves. Cost index, I'm just going to put 25. For the cruising altitude, we'll go ahead and set flight level 60, so 6,000 feet. No cruise wind standard. We'll execute. D-rated takeoff 2. Let's go ahead and look at our top cat sheet. So in Top Cat, it's going to be a standard D-rated takeoff 2, flaps 5, runway dry, air conditioning on, any-ice off, 14 degrees outside air temp, standard full thrust D-rated, 143 V1, 143 VR, and 149 V2. Approximate thrust 91.6. We'll go ahead and enter that in the FMC. D-rated climbs, fine. Flaps 5. CG should come around 21%. Got 5.88 units in the trim box. Set that up as close as we can. 587 that works. Take note, V speeds, just 1 knot off, fairly accurate. Go and arm them in. I'll just correct V1, just put 143. I feel safe with that information. Next, runway winds. There's no winds, no slopes in the sim yet. Runway conditions are dry. That completes the takeoff reference page. And at this point, the FMC is configured. Okay, moving on. EFIS control panel. Flight director switches. We're going to go ahead and recycle those. They should have been off, but they were on. Let's go ahead and throw the FO's, or captain side, master, FD, and the flight officer's flight director on. Auto throttle arm off. Indicated airspeed Mach window, we're going to put V2, which is going to be 148. 2 note, when we take off 1,000 feet per minute, positive rate gear up. We're going to be pitching and looking for V2 plus 10, no more than plus 25. So as a reference, it'll be V2 plus 10 and no more than V2 plus 25. So we'll try to keep our climb speed to 1,000 feet above ground, between 158 and 173 knots. We'll follow the flight director up. Once we're over 1,000 feet, pitch the aircraft down. We'll plan for a 230 knot climb. We'll be in vertical speed mode today, climbing to 6,000. So I'm just going to set this back to V2. I got 191 in the course window set up for ILS. Today on the FO side, we'll make a side useful. We'll throw on the VOR mode and we'll track the radials as we go along. And on final approach, we'll make sure to set this back to 191. In the heading box, we're going to put runway heading, which is 191, cleared to 6,000. Okay. Verifying the engage switches are off and engage bar is up. Also, too, we're going to set up the barometric minimums today. Decision height, we're just going to put in 507 feet. We're not going to have any problem seeing the runway today, but we'll have proper minimums. Okay, moving on. Main power, or excuse me, main panel DU and lower DU are set to normal. While I'm here, I'll check the annunciators. We'll light up the light boards. Let's check, make sure there's no lights that have gone out. Check the radio panel as well. Everything looks good. Also going to enter full screen. PFD, we've got 6000 set, MCP 148 command for the speed. See, obviously the ILS is being picked up. We got decision altitude set. 2992 on the altimeter standard pressure today. We'll verify that when we listen to ATIS and FO side, and also standby instrument is set. Standby gauge is checked and set. N1, just make sure it's set to the auto position. Speed reference auto will reset the fuel flow. Auto brake to RTO. Also, to take note, engine 1 oil quantity is 99% and engine 2 98%, so within their limits. Looking at the ECAS, you can see we have derated to take off to 92.5 thrust, set outside air temperature 14C. Parking brake is set, speed brake lever down, thrust lever is idle, reverse levers down, flaps up and verified on the indicator. Engine start lever is in the cutoff position, stabilizer trim normal. Takeoff warning horn. Comm radios will listen to ATIS. Let's get that frequency. .85. Enter full screen.
Airport information go 1317 Zulu. Wind calm. Visibility greater than 20 miles. Night conditions clear. Temperature 24. Dew point form. Altimeter 29902. Visual runway 1 center and visual runway 1 right is landing and departing runway 1.
Of course, we'll be departing and landing runway 19 left. Nav 1, we have the active ILS frequency in on both Nav 1 and Nav 2. Standby, we have the RML VOR 113.5, and for the FO side, we'll just go ahead and put the RML 1135 in the active window. And as you can see, it's picking up the RML VOR. We'll use the CDI in conjunction with our fixes, so we have plenty of situational awareness, and again, verifying 235 course radial set. To note, on final approach, we will set that back to 191 with the active ILS and Nav2 radio on final. So nav radio is checked and set, comm radios are checked and set, audio panel is set VHF1. Radio and aileron trim, rudder trim set center, aileron trim neutral. Transponder, we're squawking VFR 1200 today. It's going to run TCAS test. There is no traffic out, but need to run the test nonetheless. Other than the ground vehicles, which I thought I got rid of, but evidently did not. Okay, and we'll go ahead and throw this in TARA altitude reporting mode, and we'll leave that on until we come back down and exit the runway on after landing. Okay, pre-departure briefing. So we're going to get the aircraft pushed back and start stabilized. We're going to exit out the apron Delta. We're going to make a left on Kilo, take that down Juliet 1, hitch on 19 left. We're going to line up, perform our before takeoff checklist. We're going to take off, runway heading, look for 1,000 feet per minute, positive rate, gear up. I'm going to pitch for V2 plus 10 plus 25, no more. About 1,000 feet above the field elevation, we'll go ahead and start slowly retracting the flaps up. We'll lower the nose down, let her pick some speed up. We'll plan for 230 knot climb. By 3,000 feet MSL, we should be completely clean. Flaps up, gear up. we'll perform the after takeoff checklist. We are going to note that can't use autopilot until about 1,250 feet above ground level. We'll climb to 6,000 feet, 230 knot indicated. We'll then make a right-hand turn, 280. We'll increase speed to 240 today for cruising pattern speeds. I didn't see anywhere in the manual where we had to stay at 250 knots. We will abide by the 250 knot regulation below 10,000 feet. That's why we're choosing 240 today. We're not expecting any turbulence or winds to be dealing with. On the 280 heading, we're going to cross the radial 235. That'll be our cue to turn downwind 010. We're beam runway 19 left. At that point, we will slow the aircraft down 210, and we'll be looking to cross the 340 radial. When we cross 340 radial, we're going to turn base pretty much to heading 100. We're going to wait to cross the 175 inbound, 355 reciprocal outbound. That'll be our cue to turn, last right heading turn to 140. And in which at that point we should hopefully be set up nicely to Izumi. I'll take care of that route discontinuity in the box. We'll put it up there in the first waypoint. We'll have the nav profile set up, even though we'll just use heading select. We'll arm the localizer, get established 3,000 feet. We'll be looking for that glide scope coming on down. We'll arm that. 10-mile ring, flaps 15, gear down, slow the aircraft down. Make sure we're in a fully landed configuration, flaps down, gear down. B target speed by DOMZ 6.3 ISGC, final approach fix. At that point we'll go down and we'll call out our minimums. We'll land the aircraft, look for 150 feet per minute descent. We'll try not to float forever. Touchdown in the threshold box. We'll go ahead and exit, plan for kilo. We'll exit the runway safely, perform our after landing checklist. We'll go ahead and taxi back to the Charlie Terminal Gate 1 stand. Abide by the apron speed limits. And we will take note to turn off runway turn-off lights and taxi lights before entering the stand so we don't blind the marshal. And we'll shut down the aircraft, debrief, and wrap the flight up. So that takes care of our pre-departure briefing. And with that said, let's get underway with the before pushback checklist. Fuel pump switches. We're going to go ahead and get the APU started. So forward one on, wait for the light to extinguish. Going to run the APU. Now look for the low oil pressure light. EGT is going to spool up. Once the APU is engaged, we'll get the APU gen off bus light on. Before we switch over to APU power, we're just going to verify on the AC meter that we have a minimum of 115 volts. I do have a fault light up. I do have service-based failures on. I'm just going to check that in the FMC. Okay, showing active none. Oh, I just thought I engaged the start switch there. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. I didn't hold down the start switch long enough. Low oil pressure light extinguished. What perfect timing, huh? Have a APU fault on FRA review. That wouldn't be too cool. Glad it's working. Waiting on the AP gen off bus light. Verifying 115 volts APU gen, safe to transfer power, APU gen 1 and 2. Ground power is disconnected. Continuing. Seatbelt signs are going to remain on. Hydraulic pump A switches, just make sure the engine is also off, and we're going to turn on the B pumps. Wait for the electric light to extinguish. Flight deck door and windows, we can see we have the forward entry open. We'll go ahead and shut that. Verify that light is out, which it is. So I can confirm flight deck door and windows locked. Ground equipment, we'll go ahead and disconnect. Move the wheel shocks. Stabilizer trim green band confirm. And we'll turn on the collision lights, notify ground crew we're ready for pushback. That completes the 4 pushback checklist. I'm just going to arm the engine start checklist. We're going to turn on the service interphone. Let ground crew know we want to push back 25 straight. Turn the nose left 90 degrees, standard pushback. We'll get that started.
And ground cockpit. Hi, Captain. We're all set to go up here. We've been cleared to push and start at your discretion.
Right in there, ready for push. Power and air clear, doors closed, we are ready for pushback. Please park and brake, please.
Okay, parking brake is on, clear to push.
Okay, engine start checklist.
Brakes off,
Pack switches to off. Isolation valve set to auto. Turn the APU bleed switch on. We're going to verify duct pressure is alive, and it is. Verify 30 pounds. Alright. And go right engage on the selector switch. I look for about 20% on the N2. We'll introduce fuel into the engine number 2. Oil pressure's coming up. Introducing fuel. Around 55, 56%. N2 starter switch will turn to the off position, in which case we will put into continuous mode. Oil pressure's alive. Yeah, can see the moon. It's pretty neat. Okay, into continuous mode, repeat same process for the left engine. Switching to ground, looking for 20% N2. We'll introduce fuel, 55, 56%. We'll move the switch into continuous mode. Oil pressure's coming up. Introduce fuel. And ground crew can stop any moment here, which is fine.
push is complete, set park and brake, please.
Alright.
Alright, brakes are set and pressure's normal.
Oil pressure's coming up.
Okay, sir, tow bar is on, pin is out, watch the pin on the right.
Alright guys, thanks. You're cleared to disconnect. We will be watching for the pin and the releaser guidance on the right side of the airplane, and we'll see you guys next time through.
Roger that, have a good flight.
Oil temperature's coming up. The engine 1 switch into continuous, ignition switch to both. Okay, engine start list, checklist complete. After engine starts, generator switches 1 and 2, gen on. Now before we do that, let's verify gen 1 and 2. We have 115 available volts. so we can safely disconnect the APU. Gen 1, Gen 2, APU gen off, bus light lit. We can go ahead and turn off the APU at this point, and we can remove the APU bleed air. Also, we're going to turn on the System A hydraulic pumps, make sure those lights extinguish. Verifying engine bleeds are in the on position. APU bleed switch is off, APU is off. Static heat, just going to make sure the probes are on left and right, lights extinguished. Master caution recall. Looks like we need to turn our center pumps. We'll do that now. And we also need to turn on the aft and the rest of the fuel pumps. It's my fault there. Wait for the lights to extinguish. Center's coming on. Let's do a recall. Recall's clean. And that is an example, folks, why we do the master caution recall check. Engine wing anti-ice. Wing anti-ice is going to be off. Engine anti-ice is going to be off. It's going to remain off for the duration of the flight. Pack switches left and right, auto. It's probably getting really warm in here. Isolation valve auto. Just verify it's in the auto position. And I'm just going to take a look at these temperatures. Yeah, it's a little warm in the aft, but it's coming down. We're going to do a hydraulic system check. Verifying we have sufficient hydraulic quantity and pressure, which we do. At this point, I'm going to conduct a flight control test. So full left rudder, full right rudder. At the same time, I'm checking the quantity and pressures. Full left aileron, up, right side down. Right full aileron, right side up, left side down. Elevators full back, full forward. Pressures and quantity are stable. We're also going to verify the spoiler switch. And we can see we have movement. I'll put it in the flight detent. And we got full deflection there, so that's good. We'll go ahead and stow the speed brake in the fully down locked position. Taxi clearance. We'll go ahead and give ourselves clearance. Go ahead and taxi off the ramp here, apron. Keep the speed under 15 ground speed. Make a left on Kilo, no more than 25 knots in the ground speed. We'll make a right on Juliet 1. We'll conduct our before takeoff checklist. We'll check traffic left and right, even though there's no traffic. We'll line up and wait. Do the before takeoff, and we're set there. So with that said, let's get moving, and we'll perform the taxi checklist. So parking brake off, really holding the brakes down. Left and right runway turn off switches on with the taxi light. Flaps will set to takeoff position, flaps 5. We're going to confirm on the indicator that the transit light will come on. Once we get near 5 degrees down, we should see the green flap extension light. Going to monitor that. We do see the flap extension, flaps 5. Flight controls, we've checked that. Weight manifest, we've checked our zero fuel weight. We've checked our max takeoff weight, our landing weight, minimum takeoff weight. It's checked and correct. Center of gravity is also checked. Cabin, well, we're notified. The examiners in the back are notified. We're ready to taxi. Let's get the show on the road. And increase power to 30% initially, just to get us moving. And we're rolling. Keep our speed checked in the apron here. No more than 10 knots. Checking left. Again, I thought I removed these pesky vehicles. I guess he's waiting on me. Is he actually giving me the right of way? Alright. Just to verify all other traffic is turned off. I thought I removed ground vehicles. It's fine. At least he was intelligent enough to stop and let us go by. We'll wave to him. And we'll make our left-hand turn on Kilo here. We'll check left, we'll check right. Slow down a little bit. About 5 knots in the turn. We'll hold throttle setting. We'll go ahead and line up on the taxi line here and slowly approach up to 25 knots. In the United manual to state on certain high-speed taxiways we can taxi up to 45 knots, which I'm not doing here. 25 will be quite sufficient. I didn't check the NOTAMs for the taxi here. I figured for the flight review today we'll just keep it simple. Checking left and right. Taking note, oil temperature is a little warm. Oil pressure stabilized. As soon as we get in the air, those oil temps will come down. Go ahead and retard the throttles. Advance a little power into the turn. Smoothly turn. Don't want to spill the flight examiner's coffee in the back on their shirts. That'll get them upset. We'll go ahead and retard the throttle. Come up to 19 left here. We'll come to a complete stop. There is no traffic, but we will check left and right. Checking left, clear. Checking right, clear. We'll go ahead and line up. We'll perform our before takeoff checklist. We'll smoothly taxi onto the center line here. We'll put the center line right between my legs here. Alright, parking brake on. Pulling up the cleared into position checklist. Auto throttle armed. Engine start switches verifying they are in a continuous position. Master caution recall. It's clear, which is nice. Transponder we'll put into TARA mode. Altitude reporting, squawk and VFR. Exterior lights, go ahead and turn landing lights on. Turn taxi lights off. We'll turn the strobes on, steady. We'll leave everything else the way they are. Cleared into position, now we'll run the clock. And that completes the cleared in position checklist. Moving to the takeoff checklist, parking brake released. We'll advance 40% N1. We'll advance toga switch. And away we go. So I am ready. Let's go. 40% N1. Slowly coming off the brakes. Activating toga switch. Got M1 toga armed in the command window. Gonna move my virtual throttles to match engine speed. 60 knots. .100 knots. V1. Rotate. Pull them back. Looking for 1,000 feet per minute. Positive rate, gear up. I'll hold this level with the flight directors. I'm gonna pitch, keep this speed. Add a little down trim, take off some of the forward pressure. Get it nice and comfortable. Gear is up. We're above 1,250 feet. I'm going to go ahead and engage the altitude hold. Vertical speed. We'll lower the nose down. We'll set 230 in the indicated airspeed panel. And we'll lower nose, let her get some speed. We'll go flaps up 2. Flaps up to 1. And we'll go flaps up position. Let her get some speed. Okay, I'm going to pitch up for 1,500 on the vertical speed. And let's go ahead and start our after takeoff checklist. Positive rate of climb, gear up, flaps retracted, lights off. Autopilot is set and engaged. Air conditioning panel pressurization checked. I'm going to move the continuation, or the switches, to the off position. I'll go ahead and retract the retractables, keep the fixes down. Seatbelt signs will stay on. And we're not going to worry about transition altitude today. So after takeoff, climb checklist complete. As soon as we get to 6,000 feet, we'll make our right-hand turn to heading 280. I'm also going to put the landing gear in the off position and the auto brake to off as well. And verify heading select is selected. I thought I had that on, but we do now. Going to match the throttle quadrant setting. Also, to note, I should have had this into map mode. So, I'm making a mental note. But other than that, no problems. 1,000 feet to go. Oil temp, oil pressure is looking good. Always want to keep an eye on that too. 500 feet to go. Okay, we're coming up on 6,000 feet. I'm going to go ahead and increase airspeed to 240 and we'll start our right-hand turn to 280. And we'll be looking to cross that 235 radial off the VMO, Harmel VOR. We'll be tracking the CDI as well with our nav aids. Looks like Kilo Hotel Echo Foxtrot Airport. 30-degree standard bank. Aircraft's doing a good job. Clear weather. Holding 240. And I got 40-mile visibility. It just looks better. Unlimited looks terrible. It's considered a perfect day to me. We'll have airport in sight the whole way. MCP speed, heading select, altitude hold, verified, command window. CDI should be coming into movement here pretty soon. I have the initial descent checklist ready. CDI is in play. Now we're getting ready to cross our radial. We're going to go ahead and make our downwind turn to 010. Checking left, checking right. We're treating this as a visual circuit. 010. We'll go ahead and set up the next course window for 340 radial. Maintaining 6,240 knots. Once we're abeam, runway 19 left, we'll go ahead and start our initial descent checklist. We'll slow the aircraft down 210 knots. We'll check for runway in sight. I see the runway. Right out there. About 1:30, 2 o'clock. Approaching the beam point. As soon as we get these runways off our right, we'll go ahead and descend on, or not descend, but deaccelerate 210 knots, and we'll prep our initial descent checks. Alright, we're coming up a beam, 19 left. Let's go ahead and deaccelerate down 210 knots. Initial descent checklist. Seatbelt signs, they're on. Air conditioning and pressurization is checked, auto, and switches in the auto position. No wing engine anti-ice. Transition altitude. Well, there is no transition altitude, but we're 2992. ATIS. We'll throw that on for the sake of it. Engine start selectors. Put into continuous. Approach briefing. For the approach briefing, we're going to go ahead and track this R40 radial. We're going to turn right heading 100, deaccelerate down to 180 knots. We'll make our descent 3000 to be at Izumi. Once we cross the 175 inbound, which is the 355 reciprocal, we'll go ahead and make our last right-hand turn heading to 140, which should set us up nicely for Izumi. We'll capture the localizer. 10-mile ring, we'll flaps 15 gear down. We'll make sure we're slowing down to approach speeds. We'll make sure we're fully landed in landing configuration by the final approach fix, and we'll perform our landing checks. And we'll look for a smooth landing. We don't want to float, but we want to set her down nicely, 150 feet per minute, the target speed. I'm going to go ahead and set up the descent page. So for 40, flaps 40, we're looking at about 143 knots. Oops. And so plus 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so about 148 would be a target speed, B target. FMC for program and arrival. We'll put our fixes in when we make our last right-hand turn. We do have the approach information set up, so that is checked. Flight instruments and radios. We have the active ILS frequencies on board. On approach final, we'll go ahead and switch over the nav to standby. Make sure the ILS is set up, and we'll set up our approach window to final approach course to 191 on the FO side. We're below 10,000 feet, but on our final approach, we'll just throw down the retractables. Auto brake today will be 3. Decision height we have set 507 feet. This concludes the initial descent checklist. I'll arm the final approach and landing checklist. I'm going to go ahead and set 3000 in the MCP. We will remain in altitude hold mode. Take note too, this will also be our missed approach altitude window as well. As soon as we slow down to 180, making our turn to 100, we'll we'll use simple vertical speed descent today. We will have VNAV and LNAV profiles set up in the computer nonetheless, but we will make sure to maintain that 140 heading until we are established on the localizer. As a mental note. CDI is alive on the 340 radial. Just going to track that in a little further. Take note, vertical speed is on in the command window. Alright, let's go ahead and deaccelerate the aircraft to 180. I'm going to clear left, clear right. Let's go ahead and make our 100 heading turn. CDI is coming into position, starting the turn now. Standard 30-degree bank. As soon as we get stable on this heading fix, we'll go ahead and arm the vertical speed, engage it. Also too, we can see the 355, reciprocal radial in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and put 175 in the FO side course window. And we'll go ahead and get started with our vertical descent. And we'll look for about 700 feet per minute. We'll get the altitude bar, we'll line it up to Izumi. As soon as we cross this 175 radial, we'll make our last right-hand turn to 140. We'll hold heading until we see the localizer come into view. We'll arm the localizer. Aircraft's descending and deaccelerating nicely. No speed brakes required. I am going to match the N1 setting on the throttle quadrant. And while we're at it, oil pressures and temps look good. Constantly scanning. CDI is coming into play, as you can see there. Coming up on our radial here. Altitude bar is looking good, about 700 feet descent. As soon as CDI crosses, we'll go ahead and clear left, clear right, turn heading 140. Terrain's not a factor today. Okay, there's our cue. Clear left, clear right. Let's turn 140. Keep an eye on our descent profile. Aircraft's doing a good job. And you can see that sets us up nicely for the Izumi intersection here. I'm going to go ahead and set the course window to 191. We'll go ahead and arm nav2 localizer frequency. Also too, just to verify. Oops. We are picking up the ILS DME. We'll switch this over to map mode. And you can see in the FOS PMD, ILS is depicted. I'm going to relax on the descent a little bit, which is nice. Always like to be ahead of the aircraft. 1,000 feet to go. At this point, we are below the flap 1, flap 2, and flap 5 extension speed. Just going to put it in the first stage of flaps. Wait for that flap 1 transit. We'll go ahead and set flap 2 as well. Flaps 2. And of course the speed bug will come down once we go flap 5. Flaps 5. Green light. I'm going to set the speed bug to match flap 5. I'm going to go into the legs page just to be neat. Here, and put that up in there, activate that. And we have VNAV, LNAV profile set up, but we'll just stay on 140 till we capture the localizer, which you can see it's now coming in. And we'll clean up the magenta line as well. Just for situational awareness. The localizer's coming in. I'm just going to arm VOR localizer. And match N1 on the throttle quadrant. Oh, VOR localizer is captured. Good stuff. As soon as we get on the glide slope 1 diamond, we'll go ahead and arm the approach. Glide slope. I'm going to go ahead and extend flaps down 10. Transit light. Flaps 10. You can see VNAV profile is coming in. Extra set of guidance. Wait for that to come in. Approaching our 10-mile ring long final. We can see Asper off to our 2 o'clock here. That'll be our holding pattern if we need to go missed. 3000 set in the MCP. If we do need to go missed, we'll engage Toga. Left-hand climb, 3000, 010. Track down to this point, 040. Hold at the Asper position. We'll vector ourselves back to Izumi if we have to. And go for the second attempt. Runway is in sight, way out there, but I do see it. No surprise there. 9 miles to the Domesey, or 9.6. CV nav profiles coming in. I do have the final approach landing checklist armed. We will conduct that momentarily. I'm going to head in the landing preparation, just going to get the speed brake armed. Okay, we are approaching the 10-mile ring. Let's go ahead and gear down, flaps 15. Match the speed bug. Three green, speed brake armed. Final approach landing checklist, master recall. See the glide slope coming in. MCP missed approach altitude, we have that set and entered. Speed brake is armed. Cabin FAA examiners are notified. Flaps, we'll extend to profile here shortly. Landing gear is 3 green down. Let's go ahead and put flaps 25 in. We'll set the speed bug to such. And we can see here the glide slope is indeed coming in. Let's go ahead and arm that. Glide scope captured, single channel. Aircraft doing its thing. Maintain glide slope. VR flaps 25. Go ahead and do flaps 30. Flaps are coming down. So, just to recap, the reference 142 on the basic approach ref here. So we'll just add 5 to that, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're looking at about 148 knots for V target. We got flaps 30. Match the N1 throttle quadrant. And we'll go ahead and put in flaps 40. Flaps 40, waiting for the green light extension light is on, and we are fully landed. Landing engine start switches, continuous, recall checked. Speed brake armed only, landing gears down 3 green. Auto brake set. Flaps, green light. Landing lights, we'll configure them on, and we're ready to go. Runways in sight. There's Domesey, yeah, the intersection here, short final. Just gonna match M1. Get seated. Get ready for autopilot disengage. It's downtown Washington. Around 507. We'll go ahead and disconnect the autopilot. We'll hand flyer down. Okay, we're approaching our minimums here. Just going to go ahead and disconnect the autopilot. Turn that annoying sound off. Auto throttle disengage. Pull up a little bit. Add a little bit of power. Looking for 2 whites, 2 reds. Pitching down. Hold about 650, 700 on the descent. Pitch up a little bit. Landing. I'm going to pitch down a little high, pull some power out. Pull up a little bit. And let's go ahead and retard the throttles.
20, 10.
Hold the nose up, gently set her down, reverse thrust coming in. .60 knots. Disconnect the auto brake. We'll make the kilo intersection down here. It's going to be a tight turn, so flaps up, by the way. So we'll know to kind of take this turn a little early. Flaps are in the up position. Gently on the brakes. No need to slam them. And we'll go ahead and start our turn early onto the kilo taxiway here. Keep that speed in the turn about 5. Go ahead and bring in some power gently. Center onto the strip here. I probably would have taken the other route out, but this is fine. We'll perform our after landing checks as soon as we clear the runway here. I'm going to retard the throttles. Gently on the brakes. Come to a full stop, parking brake. And let's start our after landing checklist. Autopilot obviously disengaged. Auto throttle arm switch is off. Auto brake selector, we'll move that to the off position. Flight directors, I'll go ahead and turn them off. Exterior lights, we'll go ahead and set that up. According to the checklist, it's landing lights off. Anti-collision lights off. Strobe lights off. Put that into standby. Wing lights off. And position lights on. Turn the wheel well lights off too. Runway turn off lights left and right on with the taxi lights. And logo light on at night. I'll keep it on. Looks cool. And flaps lever up. Speed brake lever down. If I had an axis for this, I could just put it down. I have to use the mouse for it. Make sure it's stowed. Transponder will switch on over to standby. We'll stop the clock. 34 minutes in the pattern. Not too shabby. Engine start switches are in the auto off position. Engine wing anti-ice, it's off. Stabilizer trim set. It's green band. APU, we'll go ahead and get that running. Hold the switch down. And we'll make a mental note to turn the taxi and runway lights off prior to entering the gate area. So with that said, let's go to Charlie 1 terminal. 30%. Get her moving. Thought we had a nice approach in. It's a shame I had that little stutter there before touchdown. Usually I don't, but it's no biggie nonetheless. Other than that, flight went pretty well, I think. Learned something new each time. I think it's a good concept to do these little flight reviews. Always learn something new, and it's nice to learn how to fly the aircraft appropriately. I've been doing this since Flight Sim 95. Off and on. I've taken a break past year and a half, 2 years, just getting back into it again. A little rusty, but nothing a little practice and time can't fix. enjoying my stay at the United Virtual Airlines. It was recommended to me on the forums. So I'm looking forward to flying with you folks, and looking forward to do the next FR exams as well. We'll hold about 20 knots here ground speed. Checking right, checking left. We're clear. It's nice to see the technology in simulators these days progressing. It's a fun hobby. Checking left. Checking right, checking left on Delta is going to be our turn-off exit. Go ahead and retard the throttles. Gently get on the brake. Clear right, clear left. Add a little power into the turn. I imagine the FAA examiners are full on donuts and coffee in the back. We're approaching our stand. I'm just going to go ahead and shut these one-way lights off and taxi lights off. Don't want to blind the marshal. Going to take her easy inside the turn here. Add a little bit of power. Hold the brakes. Come to a complete stop. Parking brake on. Let's go ahead and run the shutdown. Secure check. So parking brake is set. Passenger sign, so we can release the examiners. AC voltmeter. We're going to check the APU gen. Got 115 volts. So we are safe to connect over to APU gen 1 and 2. And we do have the gen off buses on 1 and 2 lit. Engine start levers, idles, throttles back. We'll go ahead and do the engine shut off. Engine 1 and 2. Not sure if it's supposed to be 2 and 1 or 1 and 2. We're going to go ahead and engine start. Our APU bleed switch is going to turn that on. Engine bleed switch is off. Ground power and air. We're going to go ahead and get that connected. I'm going to monitor ground power. Verifying we have 115 alternate current volts. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to ground power. APU gen off bus light illuminated. APU bleed switch can go off at this point, and the APU we can shut down. Exterior lights, we can turn off the logo light at this point. We'll leave the position lights steady. We're not going to do a full shutdown. We'll leave it in a turnaround state. The engineers can handle the rest. isolation valve, we can put that in the open position. Packs left and right, auto. Sorry about that, I had a distraction there for a second. Recirculation fans, we'll leave them in the auto position. And we'll leave the air conditioning, all that alone. We'll go ahead and shut down the hydraulic pumps. Wing anti-ice, engine anti-ice, that's all off. We'll turn off the static probe switches and the window heat. We'll go ahead and shut the fuel pumps down as well. We'll set the ignition selector switch to both. We'll disengage the emergency exit lights. We'll turn off the odd damper. And we'll go ahead and shut the IRSs down. And we'll leave everything else the way it is at this point. So that wraps up this flight, folks. I enjoyed it, enjoyed making this video. Tried to keep it as short as I could, but it's complex aircraft, trying to explain everything as I'm doing it. And yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. This is the United Flight Review FRA, United 9785. Take care.